This is lesson 1 in the financial literacy unit. We're learning about simple and compound interest today. So we're going to start with some important terms, and then we're going to compare simple interest with compound interest, and then we're going to go through some examples. Okay, so for the important terms, this entire unit is going to be about saving money or borrowing money. When you do those things, the most common and safest way to do that is through a financial institution. So that would be like a bank or a credit union. Financial institution. Okay. Interest is money that is charged by the lender to the borrower. So if you put money in the bank and you are lending money to the bank essentially, so they can use your money while you're not using it. So you actually earn some interest when you do that. When you borrow money, though, you have to pay interest to the bank or whoever you're borrowing the money. It's like the cost of the loan. Okay, so let's go through the two main types of interest. Okay, so simple interest is only earned on the principal. That's the key idea here. So the principal is the amount that you originally borrow or invest. And then here is the equation that we're going to be using throughout the unit. I equals, so the interest equals the principal times the interest rate times however long we're borrowing the money for. We're investing the money. So I equals PRT. You don't have to memorize this equation, and you're going to be provided it for any kind of quiz or test or things like that. Okay. In contrast, so simple interest over time basically just goes up like this. Compound interest, you earn more. It's better. If you are investing your money, you want to have compound interest because you're going to earn more money over time, because not only do you earn interest on the principal, but you also earn interest on your previously earned interest. So it's like when interest is earned on interest, it compounds. So your money, if you're saving it, looks like this. So it's going up quicker, at a quicker rate. If you are going to borrow money, you don't want to have compound interest. You'd rather have simple interest because you don't want to pay as much. Okay, and then here's the equation. It's a little bit more complicated. So A here stands for the amount. That's the amount at the end that you end up with. P stands for principal. R is rate. The only difference here is N, the number of compounding periods. So it's like how often the interest is charged. Yeah. So let's practice using those two equations now. We're going to do that in the next few examples. So first few examples are going to be with simple interest. So for each equation, I'm just going to highlight the key terms, and then we'll write down what we know and then solve the appropriate equation. Okay, so here we have a principal of $8,575 was invested for 2 years at 4.25% annual simple interest. And here they say in the question simple interest, so we know to use the simple interest equation. We're going to calculate the interest earned. So I always start with just writing the equation down so I remember what all the letters are. So it's I equals PRT. So I is the interest. We don't know that. That's what we're trying to find. We know that the principal is 8,575. We know that the interest rate, we have to write it as a decimal, so it's 0.0425. Move that decimal place over twice when you convert it to a decimal. And then the time is 2 years. So if I'm just going to put those three numbers into we're starting with a pretty simple one here, into the equation, and then calculate. Okay, so here we go. So it's I equals 8,575. I don't bother with the units when I'm putting it into the equation. 0.0425 and then times 2. So I'm going to pull up my calculator here, and I would just enter this all at once. So it's 8,575 times 0.0425 times 2. And you see here we have to round this off because money is always given in 2 decimal places. So this is going to be 728.88. So 728.88. Always round to 2 decimal places for money. And I'm going to box that in because that is my final answer. Okay, let's do the next example. Here it says a principal was invested for 8 months at 5% annual interest. I'm just going to highlight as I go here. 5% annual interest, and we earned $72.25 of simple interest. Calculate the principal. Okay, so let's write out our equation again. I equals PRT. So this time we do know the interest earned. It was $72.25. The principal is what we don't know. That's what we're trying to find here. The rate is 5%, so we convert it to a decimal, 0.05. And the time, so the time should always be in years. So we have 8 months. So 8 months, if I convert that to years, I could just write it as a fraction. So it'd be 8/12 of a year because there's 12 months in 1 year. You can reduce that if you want, or write it as a decimal if you want, but I'm just going to leave it as 8/12. 8/12. Okay, so let's write what we know. So we have I equals PRT. So essentially we're just going to put those numbers into the spots in the equation that match. And then we're going to use algebra this time to solve for P. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have 72.25 equals P times 0.05 times 8/12. Now, what I like to do is just move all the terms over before I start multiplying things. That saves me some time in my calculator. So if I'm going to solve for P here, I'm going to divide both sides by 0.05 times 8/12. And I'm going to divide both sides by 0.05. Oops, I have a funny pen is being a little wonky. Let's try this. 0.05 times 8/12. There we go. And let's pull up my calculator. I'm going to clear everything. Okay. So I'm going to have 72.25 divided by, and here's where I'm going to use a bracket because I'm going to divide by all of that. So I'm going to divide by 0.05 times 8/12. Here we go. So my principal is $2,167.50. So my principal, 2,000, what was it here? $167.50. Now you want to add a 0 on there because you would never see money written as just like 0.5. You would see 0.50 because we always have 100 cents in a dollar. So you'd always use 2 decimal places, even if your calculator doesn't give you 2. Okay, there we go. Let's do some examples now with compound interest. Let's read this example and then write out what we know. Okay, so it says, suppose you take out a loan for a trip with no payments required until the end of the 3-year term. So this is how long the loan is. That's going to be our time. The loan is for $4,300. That's the principal at an interest rate of 5.2% compounded monthly. So that means the interest is recalculated every month. What is the total amount that you'd have to pay back at the end of the term? And how much interest did you pay overall? Okay, so let's write out our equation that we have. If you go back to that original table, this is the equation. Amount equals principal times 1 plus r over n, all to the power of nt. So let's just fill out what we know. We don't know the amount. That's what the question's asking for. Principal we do know, that's $4,300. That's the initial amount of the loan. The rate is 0.052, 5.2%. It's compounded monthly, so the n is going to be 12 because there's 12 months in every year, so it's like that's how many times it's compounded each year. And then the overall time is 3 years. Well, let's fill all those numbers into the different spots in the equation and then calculate. No algebra required here. We're just going to plug everything into the calculator all at once. So let's fill it all in. So we have 4,300, 1 plus 0.052 over 12, all to the power of 12 times 3. Okay, let's pull my calculator up and input this. So we have to make sure you get the brackets in the right spots here. If you don't use brackets, you're not going to get the question right. So it's 1 plus 0.052 divided by 12. And then we're going to be all to the power of 12 times 3. Okay, here we go. So the total amount at the end is $5,024.26. We do have to round it to 2 decimal places. So 5,000, and then it was $24.26. So that's the amount we have to pay back. Now that's part of the question. And then the other part of the question was the interest. So the interest would be the extra that we had to pay. So of course we're going to have to pay the $4,300 back, but then we had to pay almost that, or more than about $700 more. So the interest is going to be the difference between what we paid back at the end minus like what we originally took out the loan for. So we can just use that same number in my calculator and just say minus, or I guess, yeah, answer minus 4,300. And let's see what we get. So $724.26. $724.26. So this was the interest. Okay, so the interest is like the cost of the loan, essentially. Loans are not free. You have to pay more than you originally took in the first place. So we had to pay back that entire $4,300 plus an extra $724.26, with the final amount being $5,024.26. Okay, let's do another one. This time we're not going to look for the amount. We're going to have to do some algebra. So it says, suppose you need to save $3,700 for tuition and books in 3 years' time. A bank is offering an investment that pays 8% interest. That's a pretty good interest rate. Compounded semi-annually. That means twice a year. What principal do you need to invest now? So we're looking for the principal here. So let's write down our equation again. So it's A equals P, 1 plus R over N, all to the power of NT. So the amount, we know we have to save $3,700. The principal we don't know. The rate is 8%, so 0.08. It's compounded semi-annually, so N is 2. And the total time in years is 3. Okay, so let's plug all of those in to our equation here. So we'll put the A here, the rate here, the N here and here, and then the time here. And we'll have to do some algebra here in this question. So we have $3,700. That's what we want to end up with. We don't know the principal. 1 plus 0.08 over 2, all to the power of 2 times 3. Now here, because we want to solve for the principal, and the principal is being multiplied by this big bracket here, that's what we're going to divide both sides by. So I'm going to divide by this. And I mean, you can make it simpler on yourself. 2 times 3 is obviously 6. So I'm just going to make it a little bit easier on myself by putting 6 there. And I'll have 0.08 divided by 2 to the power of 6. Okay, and that's what I'm going to type into my calculator. So I'll have just P left on this side. And let's see what I get. So here I have 3,700 divided by, and here's where we need to use a bracket. So it's 1 plus 0.08 divided by 2, bracket, all to the power of 6, equals, so we get $2,924.16. $2,924.16. That's our principal that we need. So that's what we need to invest now. And then in 3 years' time, I know I'll have $3,700. Okay, one final example here. It says compare simple and compound interest. So now we're going to compare the two and see which one's different, which one's better. So it says, suppose you're investing $10,000. What type of interest would you prefer? So simple, remember, is going to give you less interest over time. Your money kind of grows linearly like that. And compound interest is going to give you more interest over time. Your money is going to grow quicker. So if I'm investing money, I want more interest. Interest is good. It's going to make my bank account grow. So I want compound interest. I want my money to grow faster. If I am borrowing money, I do not want to pay interest. Paying interest is a cost for me. That makes it more expensive for the loan. So I want simple interest. Let's compare the difference though and see what difference it makes. So it says calculate the difference in interest on a principal of $10,000 over 5 years with a simple interest rate or a 5.4% interest rate compounded annually. Okay, so we'll do the simple over here and the compound over here. Okay, so simple interest is I equals PRT. So our principal is $10,000. The interest rate is 0.054 and our time is 5 years. So let's plug that into the calculator and check how much interest I would have. So it'd be $10,000 times 0.054 times 5. And I get 2,700. Okay, so that's how much interest I would have to pay or how much interest I would earn, depending on if this was a loan or an investment. Okay, let's do compound interest. So compound interest, we calculate the amount, not the interest. So we'll start with that. So it's P and then 1 plus R over N, all to the power of NT. So here our principal is the same, 10,000. The interest rate is 0.054. It says compounded annually, so just once a year. And it's going to be 5 years. Okay, so let's plug that in. So it's 10,000 times, and then here's a bracket, 1 plus 0.054 bracket, all to the power of 5. We get $13,007.78. Let me just double check that. 78 cents, yeah. Okay, that's not the interest though. That's what the amount of the loan or the investment is at the end. So to get the interest, we'd have to subtract off the principal. So subtract off $10,000. And we would see that the interest would be $3,007.78. So if we compare the two, remember the stipulations were essentially the same. It was the same length of time, same principal, same interest rate. But look at the compound interest. It's quite a significant amount more than the simple interest. So if you are investing your money, you should definitely choose compound interest. If you are getting a loan, if at all possible, you should choose simple interest because it's less. All right, that's the end of the lesson.